Question 1. The analysis reveals that a proposed IBM Datacap V9.0 solution for financial services client aims to accelerate invoice processing by minimizing field-level validation during the initial scan and recognition phase, with the intention of relying on a separate manual review process downstream to correct any inaccuracies. Considering the strict regulatory environment for financial data, which of the following approaches best aligns with professional best practices for data integrity and auditability? Option A. Implement comprehensive field-level validation rules within the Datacap workflow, including cross-document checks where applicable, to ensure data accuracy at the point of capture, and ensure these validation steps are logged for audit purposes. Option B. Disable most field-level validation rules in Datacap to maximize capture speed, and document that a downstream manual review process will be responsible for identifying and correcting all data errors. Option C. Focus solely on the accuracy of the recognized text, assuming that any data discrepancies will be handled by the downstream accounting system's reconciliation features. Option D. Rely on a custom script to perform a basic data integrity check after the entire batch has been processed by Datacap, without detailed logging of individual field validations. The correct answer is A. Implement comprehensive field-level validation rules within the Datacap workflow, including cross-document checks where applicable, to ensure data accuracy at the point of capture, and ensure these validation steps are logged for audit purposes. Explanation. The analysis reveals a common challenge in IBM Datacap V9.0 solution design, balancing the need for efficient data capture with the regulatory requirements for data integrity and auditability. The scenario presents a situation where a proposed solution might inadvertently compromise these critical aspects. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the solution designer to anticipate potential downstream impacts of design choices on compliance and data trustworthiness. The pressure to deliver a fast and cost-effective solution can sometimes lead to overlooking subtle but significant regulatory implications. The designer must possess a deep understanding of both the technical capabilities of Datacap and the specific regulatory landscape governing the client's industry. The core challenge lies in ensuring that the technical solution not only meets functional requirements, but also adheres to the principles of data accuracy, completeness, and traceability mandated by relevant regulations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing a robust validation process within the Datacap workflow that leverages Datacap's built-in functionalities for data verification. This includes utilizing features like field-level validation rules, cross-document validation, and potentially integrating with external data sources for verification where appropriate. This approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the regulatory requirement for data accuracy and integrity. By building validation into the capture process, the solution minimizes the risk of erroneous data entering the system, which is crucial for compliance in regulated industries. Furthermore, Datacap's logging and audit trails associated with these validation steps provide the necessary traceability for regulatory audits, demonstrating due diligence in data handling. This proactive approach aligns with the principles of data governance and risk management, ensuring that the solution is not only functional but also compliant and trustworthy. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to rely solely on manual post-processing review to catch errors. This is professionally unacceptable because it introduces significant risk of human error, is inefficient, and fails to provide the necessary audit trail for validation steps within the automated workflow. Regulations often require demonstrable, automated controls, not just post hoc corrections. This approach also fails to meet the spirit of efficient data capture that Datacap is designed to facilitate. Another incorrect approach would be to disable or bypass certain validation rules in Datacap to speed up the initial capture process, assuming that downstream systems will handle data cleansing. This is a critical regulatory and ethical failure. It compromises data integrity at the source, making it difficult or impossible to reconstruct the original, accurate data if needed for audits or legal purposes. This bypass undermines the auditability of the data capture process and can lead to severe compliance violations, as it suggests a lack of control over data quality. A third incorrect approach would be to implement custom validation logic that is not thoroughly tested or documented. While custom logic can be powerful, if it's not robust and auditable, it can lead to inconsistent data capture and obscure the true state of the data. This lack of transparency and potential for unverified logic creates a significant compliance risk, as the integrity of the captured data cannot be reliably asserted. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such design challenges by first thoroughly understanding the client's business processes and the specific regulatory requirements applicable to their industry. This involves engaging with compliance officers and legal counsel. The next step is to map these requirements to Datacap's capabilities, identifying where automated controls can be implemented to ensure data accuracy, integrity, and auditability. A risk-based approach is essential, prioritizing the validation of critical data elements. Documentation of all design decisions, including the rationale for validation rules and their configuration, is paramount. Regular testing and validation of the implemented solution against both functional and regulatory requirements are crucial throughout the development lifecycle. Finally, a commitment to continuous improvement and adaptation to evolving regulatory landscapes ensures long-term compliance and solution effectiveness. Question 2. The performance metrics show a significant increase in the time taken for the data capture phase of document processing, leading to a backlog in downstream workflows. As the IBM Datacap V9.0 solution designer, what is the most appropriate initial course of action to diagnose and resolve this performance degradation? Option A. Implement a simplified data validation process to reduce the processing time for each document. Option B. Analyze the accuracy of OCR results and the precision of data extraction rules for the affected document types to identify potential inefficiencies in recognition profiles or rule logic. Option C. Recommend an immediate upgrade of the server hardware to increase processing capacity. Option D. Immediately increase the processing speed settings for the OCR engine across all document types to accelerate data capture. The correct answer is B. Analyze the accuracy of OCR results and the precision of data extraction rules for the affected document types to identify potential inefficiencies in recognition profiles or rule logic. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise-level document processing solutions, balancing the need for rapid data extraction with the imperative of maintaining data integrity and compliance. The performance metrics indicate a potential bottleneck or inefficiency in the data capture stage, which directly impacts downstream processes and overall solution throughput. The professional challenge lies in identifying the root cause of this performance degradation without compromising the accuracy and auditability of the captured data, which are critical for regulatory compliance and business operations. The solution designer must consider the interplay between system configuration, data complexity, and the specific requirements of the business process. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation of the data capture configuration, specifically focusing on the OCR optical character recognition and data extraction rules. This aligns with best professional practice because it directly addresses the core functionality of IBM Datacap V9.0 for data extraction. By analyzing the accuracy of OCR results and the precision of the extraction rules, the solution designer can pinpoint whether the performance issue stems from poorly configured recognition engines, inefficient rule logic, or an inappropriate choice of recognition profiles for the document types. This methodical approach ensures that any adjustments made are targeted and effective, leading to improved performance without sacrificing data quality. Furthermore, this approach is implicitly supported by IBM Datacap's design principles, which emphasize configurable rules and profiles for optimizing document processing. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately increase the processing speed of the OCR engine without first verifying the accuracy of the extracted data. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it prioritizes speed over data integrity. In many regulated industries, inaccurate data can lead to non-compliance, financial penalties, and reputational damage. The CISI, Chartered Institute for Securities and Investment Guidelines, for example, emphasize the importance of accurate record-keeping and data management. Another incorrect approach would be to bypass or simplify the data validation rules to speed up processing. This is also a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Data validation is a crucial step in ensuring that the captured information is correct and complete, meeting business requirements and regulatory mandates. Weakening these rules increases the risk of erroneous data entering the system, which can have severe consequences. A third incorrect approach would be to solely focus on hardware upgrades without investigating the software configuration. While hardware can be a factor, it is often the case that inefficient software configuration or poorly designed rules are the primary cause of performance bottlenecks in IBM Datacap. This approach fails to address the root cause and represents a misallocation of resources, potentially leading to continued performance issues and wasted expenditure, which could be viewed as a breach of professional duty to provide cost-effective and efficient solutions. Professional reasoning. When faced with performance issues in an IBM Datacap V9.0 solution, a professional solution designer should adopt a structured problem-solving methodology. This begins with a thorough understanding of the reported metrics and their implications. The next step is to hypothesize potential causes, prioritizing those directly related to the core functionality of the system, such as data capture and extraction. A systematic investigation, involving detailed analysis of configurations, rules, and logs, is essential. This process should be guided by the principle of accuracy first, ensuring that any performance enhancements do not compromise data integrity or regulatory compliance. Collaboration with business stakeholders to understand the criticality of specific data fields and the acceptable tolerance for errors is also vital. Finally, any proposed changes should be tested rigorously in a controlled environment before deployment to production. Question 3. Quality control measures reveal that a significant number of scanned invoices processed by an IBM Datacap V9.0 solution are being flagged for manual review due to incorrect vendor name extraction. The current solution design performs most data validation and verification steps only after the entire batch has been processed and exported. This is causing considerable delays and increasing the cost of manual intervention. As the solution designer, what is the most effective strategy to address this issue while maintaining acceptable processing throughput? Option A. Reduce the complexity of the vendor name extraction rules to minimize the chances of misinterpretation, accepting a higher rate of acceptable, albeit slightly inaccurate, vendor names. Option B. Increase the processing speed of the export module to expedite the delivery of batches, even with the current error rate, to reduce the overall time invoices spent in the system. Option C. Focus on improving the manual review process by providing better training to the operators and implementing more efficient tools for them to correct errors after export. Option D. Implement more robust validation rules within the Datacap application during the document processing phase, specifically targeting vendor name extraction and cross-referencing with a master vendor list to identify and flag errors before batch export. The correct answer is D. Implement more robust validation rules within the Datacap application during the document processing phase, specifically targeting vendor name extraction and cross-referencing with a master vendor list to identify and flag errors before batch export. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in document processing solutions, ensuring data accuracy and integrity while meeting performance demands. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for robust validation against the potential for increased processing time and resource consumption. Careful judgment is required to select a validation strategy that is both effective and efficient, adhering to the principles of good solution design. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the integrity of the data by implementing validation at the earliest possible stage. This aligns with the general principle of fail fast in software development, which minimizes wasted effort and resources. In the context of IBM Datacap V9.0, implementing validation rules within the application or at the batch level before extensive processing ensures that erroneous data is identified and handled promptly, preventing it from propagating through the system and requiring more complex remediation later. This proactive approach is crucial for maintaining data quality and trust in the automated process, which is a key objective for any solution designer. An incorrect approach that relies solely on post-processing validation fails to address the root cause of data errors. This can lead to significant rework, increased processing costs, and delays in delivering accurate information. From a regulatory perspective, depending on the industry and the type of data being processed, inaccurate data could lead to compliance violations, financial penalties, or reputational damage. Ethically, it represents a failure to deliver a reliable and trustworthy solution. Another incorrect approach that focuses only on speed without adequate validation is equally problematic. While performance is important, it should not come at the expense of data accuracy. In many regulated industries, data accuracy is paramount, and any solution that compromises this for the sake of speed would be unacceptable. This could lead to incorrect reporting, flawed decision-making, and potential legal liabilities. The professional reasoning process for this situation involves a thorough understanding of the data's criticality, the potential impact of errors, and the capabilities of the IBM Datacap V9. Zero solution. A solution designer must consider the trade-offs between validation thoroughness and processing speed, and then select an approach that best mitigates risks while meeting business objectives. This involves 1. Identifying critical data elements and the acceptable error tolerance. 2. Evaluating the types of errors that are likely to occur. 3. Designing validation rules that are efficient and effective. 4. Strategically placing validation points within the Datacap workflow to catch errors early. 5. Testing the solution rigorously to ensure both accuracy and performance. Question 4. During the evaluation of a Datacap V9, zero solution experiencing significant processing delays, the solution designer is tasked with identifying and implementing performance improvements. The current setup involves complex rules for data extraction and validation across various document types. The designer suspects that the rule execution is the primary bottleneck. What is the most professional and effective approach to address this performance issue? Option A. Conduct a detailed performance profiling of the Datacap application to pinpoint specific rules or rule sets that are consuming the most processing time, and then optimize or refactor those identified rules. Option B. Immediately implement a comprehensive set of general performance tuning recommendations found in industry forums, without specific analysis of the current system's behavior. Option C. Remove or simplify the most complex validation rules, assuming they are the cause of the delay to speed up processing. Option D. Recommend an immediate upgrade to the latest hardware infrastructure, believing that increased processing power will resolve the performance bottleneck. The correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed performance profiling of the Datacap application to pinpoint specific rules or rule sets that are consuming the most processing time, and then optimize or refactor those identified rules. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between optimizing system performance and ensuring data integrity and compliance with regulatory requirements. The solution designer must balance the immediate need for faster processing with the long-term implications of data accuracy and auditability. The pressure to deliver a quick fix can lead to shortcuts that compromise these critical aspects. Careful judgment is required to identify solutions that are both efficient and robust, adhering to established best practices and any applicable regulations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough analysis of the root cause of the performance bottleneck. This includes examining the existing Datacap configuration, the specific processing steps involved, and the nature of the data being processed. Identifying the most impactful area for optimization, whether it's rule optimization, batch class configuration, or hardware resources, is crucial. Implementing changes incrementally and testing their impact on both performance and data accuracy ensures that the solution is effective and does not introduce new issues. This methodical approach aligns with professional best practices for solution design, emphasizing a deep understanding of the system and its data, and prioritizing stability and accuracy over expediency. It also implicitly supports regulatory compliance by ensuring that the processing logic remains transparent and auditable. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a broad, untested set of optimizations without understanding the underlying cause is professionally unacceptable. This approach risks introducing unintended consequences, such as incorrect data extraction or classification, which could lead to regulatory noncompliance and financial penalties. Bypasses the due diligence required to ensure the integrity of the automated document processing. Modifying rules solely based on perceived complexity without profiling or testing is another professionally unsound approach. This can lead to the removal of essential validation or extraction logic, compromising data accuracy. It demonstrates a lack of systematic problem solving and a disregard for the potential impact on downstream processes and reporting. Focusing exclusively on hardware upgrades without addressing potential inefficiencies in the Datacap configuration is also problematic. While hardware can improve performance, it may mask underlying software or configuration issues. This approach is a superficial fix that does not address the core problem and can be a costly and ineffective solution in the long run, potentially leading to a system that is still prone to errors despite increased resources. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance optimization in Datacap by first establishing a baseline of current performance and data accuracy. This is followed by systematic root cause analysis, utilizing Datacap's diagnostic tools and logs. Solutions should be designed with a clear understanding of their impact on data integrity and auditability. Implementation should be iterative, with thorough testing at each stage to validate both performance gains and the absence of negative side effects. This disciplined approach ensures that solutions are not only effective, but also reliable and compliant. Question 5. The monitoring system demonstrates an alert indicating inconsistent document classification for batches that were processed using identical source data and the same Datacap application configuration. The alert highlights that similar documents are being classified into different categories across these batches, raising concerns about the reliability of the automated classification process. As the IBM Datacap V90 solution designer, what is the most appropriate initial course of action to diagnose and resolve this issue? Option A. Disable the monitoring alert for document classification inconsistencies to prevent further notifications while the system is being reviewed at a later time. Option B. Initiate a full retraining of the document classification model using a comprehensive dataset to ensure it is up-to-date and robust. Option C. Immediately adjust the confidence levels for the classification rules across the board to a higher threshold to enforce stricter classification, assuming the current levels are too permissive. Option D. Review the Datacap application logs and batch details for any error messages or processing anomalies that occurred during the classification of the affected batches. Subsequently, examine the specific classification rules and confidence levels applied to the documents in question to identify any discrepancies or unexpected behavior. Correct answer is D. Review the Datacap application logs and batch details for any error messages or processing anomalies that occurred during the classification of the affected batches. Subsequently, examine the specific classification rules and confidence levels applied to the documents in question to identify any discrepancies or unexpected behavior. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data integrity and compliance within an IBM Datacap V90 solution. The monitoring system's alert regarding inconsistent document classification across different batches, despite identical source data, points to a potential flaw in the solution's logic or configuration. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring the accuracy and reliability of the automated document processing, which directly impacts downstream business processes and regulatory adherence. Careful judgment is required to diagnose the root cause without compromising data integrity or introducing new vulnerabilities. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, evidence-based investigation. By first reviewing the Datacap application logs and batch details, the solution designer can gather objective data on the processing flow and any errors encountered. This is followed by a thorough examination of the classification rules and confidence levels, which are the primary determinants of how documents are categorized. If these steps do not reveal the issue, then a controlled test with a subset of the problematic data allows for reproducible diagnosis and targeted remediation. This methodical approach aligns with principles of good data governance and system validation, ensuring that any changes made are well understood and effective, thereby maintaining compliance with internal quality standards and any relevant industry regulations that mandate accurate data handling. An incorrect approach that involves immediately adjusting classification confidence levels without understanding the underlying cause is professionally unacceptable. This action bypasses the diagnostic process and could mask the true problem, leading to incorrect classifications becoming the norm. It also risks introducing new errors or reducing the overall accuracy of the system, potentially violating data quality standards and leading to non-compliance with regulations that require accurate record keeping. Another incorrect approach, such as disabling the monitoring alert without investigation, is a severe ethical and professional failure. This action deliberately ignores a system-generated warning of potential malfunction, which is akin to ignoring a critical system error. It directly undermines the principle of proactive system management and could lead to significant data integrity issues going unnoticed, with potentially severe consequences for the organization and its stakeholders, including regulatory penalties if the inaccurate data impacts compliance reporting. A third incorrect approach, which is to immediately retrain the entire classification model without identifying the specific cause of the discrepancy, is also problematic. While retraining can be a solution, doing so without a clear understanding of the problem is inefficient and could introduce unintended consequences. It assumes a broad model failure rather than a specific rule or configuration issue, potentially wasting resources and time. This lack of targeted problem solving is not best professional practice. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured problem-solving methodology. This begins with clearly defining the observed problem and its potential impact. Next, gather all available data and evidence, such as system logs, error messages, and batch processing details. Formulate hypotheses about the root cause and design tests to validate or invalidate these hypotheses. Implement the most targeted and least disruptive solution based on the findings. Finally, thoroughly test the solution and monitor the system to ensure the problem is resolved and no new issues have been introduced. This iterative and data-driven approach ensures that solutions are robust, compliant, and professionally sound. Question 6. Risk assessment procedures indicate that the financial services client requires a robust solution for processing loan application documents. The solution must ensure the accuracy of critical data fields such as applicant's social security number, income, and loan amount, while also adhering to strict data privacy and financial reporting regulations. Primary concern is to minimize the risk of data entry errors and fraudulent information being processed. Which of the following approaches best addresses these requirements within the IBM Datacap v9.0 framework? Option A. Focus solely on optical character recognition, OCR, accuracy for all fields, assuming that if the text is recognized, it is correct, and deferring all data validation to a later manual stage outside of Datacap. Option B. Develop custom scripts to override Datacap's built-in validation logic, prioritizing speed over accuracy for all data points. Option C. Configure Datacap to bypass all validation rules for critical fields to maximize processing speed, relying on downstream systems for error detection. Option D. Implement comprehensive automated validation rules within Datacap for all critical fields, coupled with a defined workflow for manual review and correction of any identified exceptions. The correct answer is D. Implement comprehensive automated validation rules within Datacap for all critical fields, coupled with a defined workflow for manual review and correction of any identified exceptions. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the need for efficient data processing and the imperative to maintain data integrity and security, especially when dealing with sensitive financial information. The solution designer must balance the technical capabilities of IBM Datacap v9.0 with the stringent regulatory requirements governing financial data handling. Careful judgment is required to select a validation strategy that is both effective and compliant. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data accuracy and regulatory adherence. By implementing a multi-layered validation process that includes both automated checks within Datacap and a manual review for exceptions, the solution ensures that data is not only processed efficiently, but also accurately and securely. This aligns with the principles of data governance and compliance, which are paramount in the financial industry. The use of Datacap's built-in validation rules addresses common data entry errors, while the manual review of exceptions provides a critical human oversight for complex or potentially fraudulent entries, thereby mitigating risks associated with data inaccuracies and noncompliance. An incorrect approach that relies solely on automated validation without a mechanism for exception handling would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would violate regulatory requirements that mandate a high degree of data accuracy and integrity for financial reporting. Such an approach could lead to the propagation of errors, potentially resulting in incorrect financial statements, regulatory penalties, and damage to the organization's reputation. Another incorrect approach that involves bypassing validation rules for speed would be a severe ethical and regulatory failure. This directly contravenes the principles of data integrity and security, exposing the organization to significant risks of financial misstatement, fraud, and noncompliance with financial regulations. It demonstrates a disregard for professional responsibility and the safeguarding of sensitive data. A third incorrect approach that focuses only on the technical implementation of Datacap, without considering the downstream impact on compliance and data governance, would also be professionally deficient. While technically sound, it fails to address the broader business and regulatory context, leading to a solution that may be efficient but ultimately non-compliant and risky. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the data sensitivity, the relevant regulatory landscape, and the capabilities of the chosen technology. A risk-based approach is essential, where potential data integrity issues and their consequences are identified and addressed proactively. This involves collaborating with stakeholders, including compliance officers and business users, to define validation requirements and exception handling procedures. The solution designer must then translate these requirements into a robust and compliant Datacap solution, ensuring that all validation steps are appropriately configured and that exception workflows are clearly defined and manageable. Question 7. Regulatory review indicates that a financial institution is implementing an IBM Datacap v9.0 solution to process loan application documents. A key compliance requirement is the ability to retain original scanned documents and all extracted data for a minimum of 7 years, with a verifiable audit trail of all processing steps. Which of the following design considerations best ensures adherence to these U.S. federal financial record-keeping regulations? Option A. Utilize a cloud-based storage provider for all scanned documents and extracted data without explicitly verifying their compliance with U.S. federal financial record-keeping regulations regarding data residency and immutability. Option B. Configure Datacap to only store the final validated data in the core banking system, relying on the banking system's native retention policies for all historical records. Option C. Implement a Datacap solution that archives original scanned documents and all extracted data to a secure, immutable storage solution with comprehensive audit logging enabled for all system activities, including document ingestion, processing, and data export. Option D. Design the Datacap workflow to automatically delete original scanned documents and intermediate extracted data immediately after successful data validation and export to the core banking system. Correct answer is D. Design the Datacap workflow to automatically delete original scanned documents and intermediate extracted data immediately after successful data validation and export to the core banking system. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing document processing solutions, balancing the need for efficient data extraction with stringent regulatory requirements for data retention and auditability. The professional challenge lies in designing a Datacap solution that not only meets business objectives, but also adheres to the specific data handling mandates of the relevant jurisdiction, which for this exam is assumed to be U.S. federal regulations pertaining to financial record keeping. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the regulatory framework, specifically the requirements for data integrity, immutability, and accessibility for audit purposes. A Datacap solution designed with these principles in mind will incorporate features that ensure original documents and their extracted data are preserved in a manner that satisfies legal obligations. This includes robust logging, secure storage, and clear audit trails, all of which are critical for demonstrating compliance during regulatory examinations. Incorrect approaches fail to adequately address these regulatory mandates. For instance, a solution that prioritizes immediate data deletion after extraction, even if it improves processing speed, directly violates regulations requiring data retention for specified periods. Similarly, a solution that lacks comprehensive audit logging makes it impossible to reconstruct the processing history of a document, which is a fundamental requirement for demonstrating the integrity of the extracted data and the overall compliance of the system. Over-reliance on cloud storage without considering data residency and security protocols mandated by U.S. financial regulations would also be a significant failure. Professional decision-making process should begin with a comprehensive assessment of all applicable regulations. This involves identifying specific requirements related to data capture, storage, retention, and auditability. Once these requirements are understood, the Datacap solution design should be guided by these mandates, ensuring that each component and workflow contributes to regulatory compliance. This proactive approach, integrating compliance from the outset, is far more effective and less risky than attempting to retrofit compliance measures later. Question 8. The control framework reveals that a financial services organization is implementing IBM Datacap v9.0 to automate document processing. Given the stringent U.S. regulatory environment for financial institutions, which approach best ensures that the solution is designed to meet all compliance obligations related to data integrity, audit trails, and data retention? Option A. Prioritize the rapid deployment of the IBM Datacap v9.0 solution to achieve immediate efficiency gains, with a plan to address any potential compliance issues in a post-implementation review. Option B. Implement a generic compliance checklist that covers common data processing regulations, without specific consideration for the unique requirements of the U.S. financial services sector or the detailed functionalities of IBM Datacap v9.0. Option C. Focus exclusively on leveraging the advanced technical capabilities of IBM Datacap v9.0 for document processing, assuming that standard software features will inherently satisfy regulatory needs. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of U.S. financial services regulations concerning data integrity, audit trails, and retention, and map IBM Datacap v9.0's features and configuration options to these specific requirements during the design phase. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of U.S. financial services regulations concerning data integrity, audit trails, and retention, and map IBM Datacap v9.0's features and configuration options to these specific requirements during the design phase. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in regulated industries where data processing systems must adhere to strict compliance requirements. The professional challenge lies in balancing the efficiency gains offered by a new Datacap v9.0 solution with the imperative to maintain regulatory adherence. Misinterpreting or overlooking specific regulatory mandates can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. The need for a robust control framework is paramount to ensure that the implemented solution not only meets business objectives, but also satisfies all applicable legal and ethical obligations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the relevant regulatory framework, specifically focusing on data integrity, audit trails, and data retention policies as mandated by U.S. regulations for financial services. IBM Datacap v9.0's capabilities for logging, version control, and secure data handling must be mapped directly to these regulatory requirements. This ensures that the solution is designed with compliance as a foundational element, rather than an afterthought. Best professional practice dictates a proactive, risk-based approach where potential compliance gaps are identified and addressed during the design phase. This minimizes the likelihood of non-compliance post-implementation and demonstrates due diligence to regulatory bodies. Incorrect approaches analysis. Prioritizing only the speed of implementation without a comprehensive regulatory review is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This approach risks deploying a system that, while efficient, may violate data privacy, security, or auditability requirements. Such a failure could lead to fines, sanctions, and loss of customer trust. Focusing solely on the technical features of IBM Datacap v9.0 without considering the specific regulatory context of the financial services industry is another critical failure. While Datacap may offer advanced features, their applicability and compliance must be evaluated against the backdrop of U.S. financial regulations. Ignoring these specific mandates means the solution might not provide the necessary controls for auditability or data protection required by law. Implementing a generic compliance checklist without tailoring it to the nuances of financial services regulations and the specific functionalities of Datacap v9.0 is also professionally unacceptable. Compliance is not a one-size-fits-all endeavor. It requires a deep understanding of both the technology and the specific legal landscape it operates within. A generic approach will likely miss crucial industry-specific requirements, leading to non-compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, risk-aware approach to solution design. This involves 1. identifying all applicable regulatory frameworks and specific mandates relevant to the industry and data being processed. 2. Thoroughly understanding the capabilities and limitations of the chosen technology, IBM Datacap V9, 0 in this case. 3. Mapping technology capabilities to regulatory requirements, identifying any gaps. 4. Designing the solution to proactively address identified gaps, incorporating necessary controls for data integrity, auditability, security, and retention. 5. Documenting the compliance rationale and ensuring ongoing monitoring and auditing processes are in place. This systematic process ensures that compliance is integrated into the solution from its inception, mitigating risks and demonstrating a commitment to regulatory adherence. Question 9. The performance metrics show a significant increase in data processing errors within a financial services client's IBM Datacap V9, 0 solution, specifically related to the extraction and validation of customer account information. The client is a U.S.-based brokerage firm. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory requirements for data integrity and auditability in the U.S. financial services industry? Option A. Immediately reconfigure the OCR engine to a more aggressive setting to improve character recognition, and then manually review a sample of the corrected data to confirm accuracy. Option B. Temporarily disable certain validation rules that are flagging the majority of errors to expedite processing, with a plan to address them in a future, less urgent update. Option C. Focus on optimizing the performance of the Datacap server to reduce processing time, assuming that faster processing will inherently lead to fewer errors. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis of the error increase, involving a review of Datacap logs, validation rules, and data export processes, and develop a documented remediation plan that is reviewed by the client's compliance team before implementation. The correct answer is A. Immediately reconfigure the OCR engine to a more aggressive setting to improve character recognition, and then manually review a sample of the corrected data to confirm accuracy. Explanation. The performance metrics show a significant increase in data processing errors within a financial services client's IBM Datacap V9, 0 solution. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly impacts the accuracy and integrity of financial data, which is subject to stringent regulatory oversight in the United States. The solution designer must not only identify the root cause of the errors, but also ensure that any remediation adheres strictly to relevant U.S. financial regulations, such as those enforced by the SEC and FINRA, and data privacy laws like GLBA. The pressure to quickly resolve the issue without compromising compliance or introducing new vulnerabilities requires a deep understanding of both the technical capabilities of Datacap and the legal and ethical obligations of financial data handling. The correct approach involves a systematic, documented investigation that prioritizes data integrity and regulatory adherence. This means thoroughly analyzing the Datacap workflow, identifying specific points of failure, e.g., OCR accuracy, validation rules, data export, and implementing corrective actions that are tested and validated against regulatory requirements. This approach represents best professional practice because it demonstrates due diligence, accountability, and a commitment to maintaining a compliant and reliable system. It ensures that the remediation process itself does not create new compliance risks, such as unauthorized data access or inadequate audit trails, which are critical under U.S. financial regulations. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on a quick technical fix without considering the regulatory implications would be professionally unacceptable. For example, bypassing validation rules to speed up processing, even temporarily, could lead to the submission of inaccurate financial data, violating regulations that mandate data accuracy and integrity. Another incorrect approach would be to implement changes without proper testing and documentation, which would fail to meet audit requirements and could lead to unforeseen issues, potentially violating regulations that require auditable processes and change management controls. Furthermore, making assumptions about data handling without consulting the client's compliance officers or legal counsel could lead to breaches of data privacy laws like GLBA, which have strict requirements for the protection of non-public personal information. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the regulatory landscape relevant to the client's industry and data. This involves proactive engagement with compliance teams, thorough risk assessment of proposed solutions, and a commitment to transparent documentation and testing. When faced with performance issues, the process should be: 1. Understand the impact and regulatory context. 2. Investigate thoroughly, documenting all findings and hypotheses. 3. Propose solutions that not only address the technical issue, but also meet all compliance requirements. 4. Test and validate solutions rigorously. 5. Implement with proper change control and ongoing monitoring. Question 10. Implementation of an IBM Datacap V9.0 solution for processing financial documents requires careful consideration of data privacy regulations. The project team is eager to deploy the solution quickly to improve operational efficiency. What is the most appropriate approach to ensure regulatory compliance throughout the design and implementation phases? Option A. Rely on the business unit's interpretation of data privacy requirements, as they are most familiar with the financial documents being processed. Option B. Proceed with the implementation based on the IT department's understanding of data privacy best practices, assuming that standard security measures will suffice. Option C. Prioritize rapid deployment and operational efficiency, addressing any potential regulatory concerns only if they are explicitly raised by external auditors or regulatory bodies post-implementation. Option D. Proactively engage legal counsel and compliance officers to review the proposed Datacap solution design and ensure it aligns with all applicable data privacy laws and industry-specific guidelines before proceeding with development. Correct answer is D. Proactively engage legal counsel and compliance officers to review the proposed Datacap solution design and ensure it aligns with all applicable data privacy laws and industry-specific guidelines before proceeding with development. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in regulated industries where data privacy and security are paramount. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient data processing and analysis with strict adherence to data protection regulations. A solution designer must not only understand the technical capabilities of IBM Datacap, but also the legal and ethical obligations surrounding the data being processed. The pressure to deliver a functional solution quickly can sometimes lead to overlooking critical compliance requirements, making careful judgment and a proactive approach to regulatory adherence essential. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding and integration of regulatory requirements from the outset. By engaging legal counsel and compliance officers, the solution designer ensures that the IBM Datacap V9.0 implementation is designed to meet all applicable data privacy laws and industry-specific guidelines. This proactive engagement minimizes the risk of noncompliance, which can lead to severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling and ethical business practices, aligning with the core principles of data protection. An incorrect approach that involves proceeding with the implementation without explicit legal review fails to uphold the duty of care required in handling sensitive data. This oversight constitutes a significant regulatory failure, as it bypasses established compliance protocols designed to protect individuals' privacy. Such an approach risks violating data protection laws, leading to potential fines and legal action. Another incorrect approach, which relies solely on the IT department's interpretation of regulations, is also professionally unacceptable. IT departments may possess technical expertise, but often lack the specialized legal knowledge to accurately interpret and apply complex data privacy legislation. This can result in misinterpretations and non-compliant system designs, creating vulnerabilities that expose the organization to regulatory scrutiny and penalties. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a multidisciplinary approach. Before commencing any design or implementation, a solution designer must identify all relevant regulatory frameworks. This should be followed by consultation with legal and compliance experts to gain a comprehensive understanding of these requirements. The design phase should then explicitly incorporate controls and processes to meet these obligations. Regular reviews and audits throughout the project lifecycle, involving both technical and compliance stakeholders, are crucial to ensure ongoing adherence. Finally, a robust change management process should be in place to address any modifications that might impact regulatory compliance. Question 11. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood of noncompliance with data privacy regulations due to the sensitive nature of documents being processed by the IBM Datacap V9.0 solution, which design approach best mitigates this risk while ensuring efficient document processing. Option A. Focus solely on optimizing the OCR accuracy and batch processing speed to handle the high volume of documents quickly. Option B. Minimize the logging of user actions to reduce storage requirements and improve system performance. Option C. Rely on existing network security measures to protect the data without specific access controls within the Datacap application itself. Option D. Implement granular access controls at the document and field level within Datacap, coupled with comprehensive audit logging of all user actions and data modifications. The correct answer is D. Implement granular access controls at the document and field level within Datacap, coupled with comprehensive audit logging of all user actions and data modifications. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing document processing solutions where regulatory compliance is paramount. The core difficulty lies in balancing the efficiency gains of an automated solution with the stringent requirements for data integrity, auditability, and privacy mandated by regulations. A solution designer must not only understand the technical capabilities of IBM Datacap, but also how those capabilities map to specific compliance obligations. The risk matrix highlights potential areas of noncompliance, requiring a proactive and informed approach to mitigation. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified risks through a layered strategy that prioritizes regulatory adherence by incorporating robust audit trails, access controls, and data validation mechanisms within the Datacap workflow. The solution designer ensures that the system not only processes documents efficiently, but also maintains the integrity and security of sensitive information as required by relevant data protection and financial regulations. This proactive design minimizes the likelihood of compliance breaches and facilitates easier audits. An incorrect approach that overlooks the need for detailed audit logging fails to meet regulatory requirements for traceability and accountability. Many regulations, particularly those in financial services or healthcare, mandate the ability to reconstruct document processing history. Without comprehensive logs, demonstrating compliance during an audit becomes impossible, leading to potential fines and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over data validation risks introducing errors into critical data. This can lead to incorrect financial reporting, flawed decision-making, and ultimately, non-compliance with accuracy standards set by regulatory bodies. The principle of garbage in, garbage out is particularly dangerous in regulated environments. A third incorrect approach that neglects to implement granular access controls exposes sensitive data to unauthorized viewing or modification. This directly violates data privacy regulations and can result in severe penalties. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a thorough understanding of the regulatory landscape, a risk-based assessment of the proposed solution, and a commitment to designing systems that are not only functional but also compliant and secure. It involves a systematic evaluation of how each design choice impacts the organization's ability to meet its legal and ethical obligations. Question 12. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a robust data anonymization process within the IBM Datacap V9.0 solution would increase development time and initial deployment costs. However, the solution will process sensitive personal data for a large customer base, which approach best aligns with regulatory compliance requirements for data privacy. Option A. Proceed with the anonymization process as designed, ensuring it meets the specific legal definitions of anonymization under the relevant jurisdiction's data protection laws, and document this adherence. Option B. Defer the implementation of advanced anonymization features until a future release, prioritizing faster deployment and lower initial costs, and address compliance concerns reactively if issues arise. Option C. Rely on general industry best practices for data security and assume that the simplified masking is sufficient, without seeking specific legal counsel on the anonymization requirements. Option D. Implement a simplified data masking technique that offers some level of obfuscation, but does not meet the strict legal definition of anonymization, citing the cost savings as justification. Correct answer is A. proceed with the anonymization process as designed, ensuring it meets the specific legal definitions of anonymization under the relevant jurisdiction's data protection laws, and document this adherence. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in regulatory compliance for data processing solutions, balancing the need for efficient data capture with the stringent requirements of data privacy regulation. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying complex legal frameworks to technical design decisions, ensuring that the implemented solution not only meets business objectives, but also adheres to all applicable laws. This requires a deep understanding of both the technology and the legal landscape. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding and explicit documentation of how the solution will meet specific regulatory mandates. By engaging legal counsel and conducting a formal risk assessment, the solution designer demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to compliance. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of future legal challenges, fines, and reputational damage. It ensures that the design is not only technically sound, but also legally defensible, aligning with the principles of data protection by design and by default, which are cornerstones of modern privacy regulations. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the perceived cost savings of a less compliant method fails to acknowledge the significant financial and reputational risks associated with noncompliance. Regulatory bodies impose substantial penalties for data breaches and privacy violations. Furthermore, a lack of demonstrable compliance can erode customer trust, leading to lost business. Another incorrect approach that relies on a general understanding of privacy principles without specific legal consultation is also professionally unacceptable. Privacy laws are nuanced and vary significantly. A superficial understanding can lead to critical oversights. Relying on assumptions about data anonymization without verifying its legal adequacy under the relevant jurisdiction's laws is a prime example of such an oversight. This can result in the inadvertent processing of personal data in a manner that violates privacy rights, leading to regulatory scrutiny. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify all applicable regulatory frameworks relevant to the data being processed and the solution's functionality. 2. Consult with legal experts specializing in data privacy and relevant industry regulations to interpret these frameworks. 3. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment (DPIA) to identify and mitigate risks. 4. Document all compliance-related decisions, justifications, and mitigation strategies. 5. Implement technical and organizational measures that embed privacy principles into the solution's design. 6. Establish ongoing monitoring and auditing processes to ensure continued compliance. Question 13. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive approach to integrating regulatory compliance into the design of an IBM Datacap V9.0 solution for processing financial documents in the United States. Which of the following strategies best ensures adherence to relevant U.S. financial regulations and data integrity standards? Option A. Implementing the Datacap solution with a minimal set of validation rules, assuming that any necessary compliance adjustments can be made later through ad hoc modifications. Option B. Developing a Datacap solution that focuses primarily on achieving the highest possible data extraction speed and accuracy, with compliance checks to be addressed as a secondary phase after initial deployment. Option C. Prioritizing the implementation of robust data validation rules that directly map to specific U.S. financial regulatory requirements, establishing comprehensive audit trails for all data processing activities, and defining clear data retention policies aligned with legal mandates. Option D. Designing the Datacap solution without explicitly documenting how its functionalities address specific U.S. financial regulations, relying on general industry best practices for compliance. The correct answer is C. Prioritizing the implementation of robust data validation rules that directly map to specific U.S. financial regulatory requirements, establishing comprehensive audit trails for all data processing activities, and defining clear data retention policies aligned with legal mandates. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing document processing solutions like IBM Datacap V9.0 within regulated industries. The core difficulty lies in balancing the efficiency gains offered by automated data extraction and validation with the stringent legal and regulatory requirements for data integrity, auditability, and retention. Specifically, the need to comply with U.S. regulations governing financial record-keeping and data privacy, such as those mandated by the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, and potentially HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, if healthcare data is involved, adds a layer of complexity. A solution designer must ensure that the Datacap implementation not only meets business objectives, but also serves as a compliant and auditable system of record. Failure to do so can result in significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a proactive and integrated strategy for regulatory compliance. This involves embedding compliance considerations into the very design of the Datacap solution from its inception. Key elements include establishing clear data validation rules that align with regulatory standards, implementing robust audit trails to track all data modifications and access, and defining precise data retention policies that adhere to legal mandates. Furthermore, ensuring that the Datacap system can generate reports that demonstrate compliance to auditors is crucial. This approach represents best professional practice because it treats regulatory compliance not as an afterthought but as a fundamental requirement, thereby minimizing risk and ensuring the long-term viability and trustworthiness of the solution. It aligns with the principles of privacy by design and security by design, which are increasingly becoming regulatory expectations in the U.S. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a solution without thoroughly documenting the validation rules and their alignment with specific U.S. regulatory requirements is a significant failure. This lack of documentation makes it impossible to demonstrate compliance to auditors and leaves the organization vulnerable to penalties if discrepancies are found. It violates the spirit of regulations that require clear accountability and verifiable processes. Retrofitting compliance measures after the Datacap solution has been deployed is another failure. This reactive approach is often costly, inefficient, and may not fully address all compliance gaps. It suggests a lack of foresight and a failure to integrate compliance into the initial design phase, which is a core tenet of responsible solution architecture in regulated environments. This can lead to a system that is not truly compliant, even with later modifications. Focusing solely on the technical performance metrics of the Datacap solution without considering the underlying data governance and regulatory implications is a critical ethical and professional lapse. While performance is important, it cannot supersede legal obligations. This approach demonstrates a misunderstanding of the broader responsibilities of a solution designer in a regulated industry and can lead to a system that is fast but non-compliant, posing substantial legal and financial risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this domain must adopt a risk-based approach to solution design. This involves identifying all relevant U.S. regulations applicable to the data being processed by Datacap. The next step is to map these regulatory requirements to specific functionalities and configurations within the Datacap solution. This includes defining data validation rules, access controls, audit logging, and retention policies. A critical part of this process is developing comprehensive documentation that clearly articulates how the solution meets each regulatory requirement. Regular reviews with legal and compliance teams are essential to ensure ongoing adherence. The decision-making process should prioritize the integrity and compliance of the data throughout its lifecycle, ensuring that the solution not only meets business needs, but also safeguards the organization against legal and financial repercussions. Question 14. Investigation of a new document processing workflow using IBM Datacap V9.0 has revealed a critical business need for rapid deployment to meet an upcoming regulatory deadline. The project manager is pushing to bypass the formal risk assessment phase to accelerate the design and implementation. What is the most appropriate course of action for the solution designer? Option A. Inform the project manager that the risk assessment cannot be skipped and refuse to proceed with the design until a full assessment is completed, potentially missing the deadline. Option B. Delegate the risk assessment to a junior team member to ensure it is completed quickly without significantly impacting the design timeline. Option C. Conduct a focused, expedited risk assessment specifically targeting the critical regulatory compliance aspects and potential data integrity issues documenting any residual risks. Option D, proceed with the solution design immediately to meet the deadline, deferring any risk assessment until after the initial deployment. The correct answer is C. Conduct a focused, expedited risk assessment specifically targeting the critical regulatory compliance aspects and potential data integrity issues, documenting any residual risks. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in solution design, where the perceived urgency of a business requirement clashes with the necessity of a thorough risk assessment. The pressure to deliver a solution quickly can lead to shortcuts that bypass critical due diligence, potentially exposing the organization to significant operational, financial, or compliance risks. A robust risk assessment is not merely a procedural step, but a fundamental component of responsible solution design, ensuring that potential negative impacts are identified, understood, and mitigated before implementation. The correct approach, which prioritizes a comprehensive risk assessment before proceeding with solution design, represents best professional practice because it aligns with the principles of due diligence and prudent risk management. In the context of IBM Datacap V9.0 solution design, this means systematically identifying potential vulnerabilities in data capture processes, such as data integrity issues, security breaches, or non-compliance with data handling regulations. By proactively addressing these risks, the solution designer ensures the long-term viability and security of the implemented system, protecting the organization's assets and reputation. This aligns with general IT governance best practices that emphasize a proactive, risk-based approach to technology adoption and implementation. An incorrect approach that skips or superficially addresses the risk assessment phase is professionally unacceptable due to several regulatory and ethical failures. Firstly, it demonstrates a disregard for the organization's duty of care to protect sensitive data, which could lead to breaches of privacy regulations if personal or confidential information is mishandled. Secondly, it violates the principle of professional responsibility to deliver solutions that are not only functional but also secure and compliant. This failure to conduct a proper risk assessment can result in significant financial penalties, legal liabilities, and reputational damage for the organization. Furthermore, it undermines the trust placed in the solution designer by stakeholders who expect a diligent and responsible approach to system development. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the project's objectives, coupled with an unwavering commitment to risk management principles. When faced with pressure to expedite a project, a solution designer should advocate for the inclusion of a risk assessment phase, clearly articulating the potential consequences of omitting it. This involves engaging with stakeholders to explain the value of risk assessment in safeguarding the project's success and the organization's interests. If immediate mitigation is impossible, the designer should document the risks associated with proceeding without assessment and propose a plan for retrospective risk evaluation and mitigation. Question 15. What factors determine the appropriate level of detail and rigor for a risk assessment when designing an IBM Datacap V9.0 solution to meet a new business requirement for automated invoice processing? Option A. The cost of implementing the risk assessment tools and the potential for the risk assessment process to delay the project timeline. Option B. The number of users who will interact with the new invoice processing functionality and the general industry standards for document management. Option C. The sensitivity and volume of the data being processed, the potential impact of system failure or data breach on business operations and regulatory compliance, and the complexity of the proposed solution's integration with existing systems. Option D. The perceived urgency of the business request and the availability of development resources to implement the solution quickly. Correct answer is C. The sensitivity and volume of the data being processed, the potential impact of system failure or data breach on business operations and regulatory compliance, and the complexity of the proposed solution's integration with existing systems. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in solution design, where the perceived urgency of a business requirement clashes with the need for a thorough risk assessment. The professional challenge lies in balancing the immediate demand for a new feature with the long-term implications of introducing potential vulnerabilities or compliance gaps. A rushed implementation without proper risk evaluation can lead to significant financial losses, reputational damage, and regulatory penalties. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the solution is not only functional, but also secure, compliant, and sustainable. The correct approach emphasizes a proactive and integrated risk assessment process. This aligns with best professional practices and regulatory expectations for data handling and solution development. By identifying, analyzing, and mitigating risks early in the design phase, the solution designer ensures that potential issues are addressed before they become costly problems. This approach demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to building robust and compliant solutions, which is a fundamental ethical and professional obligation. It also aligns with the principles of responsible innovation, where new capabilities are introduced with a clear understanding and management of associated risks. An incorrect approach that bypasses or minimizes the risk assessment process due to time constraints is professionally unacceptable and carries significant regulatory and ethical failures. For instance, prioritizing speed over security could lead to a breach of data privacy regulations, such as those governing the handling of personally identifiable information. This would constitute a failure to comply with legal mandates and an ethical lapse in protecting sensitive data. Similarly, ignoring potential operational risks might result in system instability or data corruption, leading to business disruption and potential financial penalties for noncompliance with service-level agreements or industry standards. Such an approach demonstrates a lack of foresight and a disregard for the potential harm to the organization and its stakeholders. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach to risk management. This includes clearly defining the scope of the risk assessment, identifying all potential risks, technical, operational, security, compliance, business, evaluating the likelihood and impact of each risk, and developing appropriate mitigation strategies. When faced with pressure to expedite, professionals should advocate for the necessary time for risk assessment, clearly articulating the potential consequences of neglecting this crucial step. They should also explore options for phased implementation or risk-based prioritization to manage competing demands without compromising fundamental risk management principles. Question 16. When evaluating the risk assessment for a new IBM Datacap V9.0 solution, which approach best balances thoroughness with practical implementation constraints to ensure robust security and compliance? Option A. Rely primarily on the risk assessments provided by third-party software vendors integrated into the Datacap solution, assuming their assessments cover all relevant risks for the specific implementation. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies all potential threats, vulnerabilities, and their potential impact, prioritizing mitigation efforts based on a combination of likelihood and impact, and documenting all findings and decisions. Option C. Prioritize the risk assessment on identifying and mitigating only those risks that have a high potential impact, even if their likelihood of occurrence is very low. To address the most catastrophic scenarios first, Option D. Focus the risk assessment exclusively on threats that have been historically documented and are explicitly mentioned in vendor security advisories, as these represent the most probable risks. Correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies all potential threats, vulnerabilities, and their potential impact, prioritizing mitigation efforts based on a combination of likelihood and impact, and documenting all findings and decisions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the solution designer must balance the need for robust risk assessment with the practical constraints of project, such as tight deadlines and limited resources. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise the thoroughness of the risk assessment, potentially exposing the organization to unforeseen vulnerabilities. Careful judgment is required to identify and prioritize risks effectively without becoming paralyzed by analysis or overlooking critical threats. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it aligns with the fundamental principles of responsible solution design and data governance. By systematically identifying potential threats, vulnerabilities, and their impact, the designer ensures that security and compliance considerations are integrated from the outset. This proactive stance minimizes the likelihood of costly remediation efforts later in the project lifecycle and demonstrates adherence to the implicit ethical obligation to protect sensitive information and maintain system integrity. It also supports compliance with general data protection principles that require risk-based approaches to data processing and security. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on known, documented threats fails to account for emerging risks or novel attack vectors. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it creates a false sense of security and leaves the system exposed to unknown vulnerabilities, potentially violating the principle of security by design and security by default, which are foundational to many data protection frameworks. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes only high-impact, low-probability risks overlooks the cumulative effect of numerous low-impact risks. This is a professional failure as it can lead to significant operational disruptions or data breaches if multiple minor issues are exploited in conjunction. Ethically, it fails to uphold the duty of care to protect the system and its data comprehensively. A third incorrect approach that relies entirely on vendor-provided risk assessments without independent verification is also professionally unacceptable. This can lead to overlooking specific implementation details or unique environmental factors that introduce risks not identified by the vendor. It represents a failure in due diligence and can lead to non-compliance with internal policies and external regulations that mandate independent verification of security controls. The professional reasoning process for such situations should involve a structured risk assessment methodology. This includes defining the scope of the assessment, identifying assets and potential threats, analyzing vulnerabilities, evaluating the likelihood and impact of risks, and developing appropriate mitigation strategies. Professionals should always document their risk assessment process and decisions, and regularly review and update assessments as the system evolves and the threat landscape changes. This iterative process ensures that risk management remains a continuous activity, not a one-time event. Question 17. The performance metrics show a slight increase in document processing errors and a minor delay in batch completion times for a recently deployed IBM Datacap V9.0 solution. As the solution designer, what is the most appropriate approach to address these emerging issues within the context of a risk assessment? Option A. Defer a formal risk assessment until a significant system failure occurs, at which point a root cause analysis can be performed. Option B. Prioritize the immediate deployment of new features to distract from the current performance issues and improve overall user perception. Option C. Immediately implement a series of ad hoc technical fixes to address the observed errors and delays, assuming these are isolated incidents. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment focusing on potential causes of increased errors and delays, engaging with operations and quality assurance teams to gather data, and documenting identified risks and proposed mitigation strategies. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment focusing on potential causes of increased errors and delays, engaging with operations and quality assurance teams to gather data, and documenting identified risks and proposed mitigation strategies. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in solution design, balancing the need for robust risk assessment with the practical constraints of project timelines and resource availability. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the risk assessment is thorough enough to identify potential issues that could impact the solution's integrity, compliance, and operational efficiency, without becoming an insurmountable bottleneck. Careful judgment is required to prioritize risks based on their potential impact and likelihood, and to select appropriate mitigation strategies that are both effective and feasible within the project context. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically identifies, analyzes, and prioritizes risks relevant to the IBM Datacap V9.0 solution. This aligns with the principles of responsible solution design, which mandate proactive identification and management of potential issues. By engaging stakeholders and leveraging historical data, the approach ensures that the risk assessment is informed and comprehensive. Documenting these risks and their mitigation plans provides a clear roadmap for addressing potential problems, thereby safeguarding the solution's success and adherence to any applicable regulatory frameworks that might govern data handling and processing, even if not explicitly stated in the exam's jurisdiction. This proactive stance minimizes the likelihood of costly rework or compliance failures later in the project lifecycle. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate technical feasibility without considering broader business or compliance implications would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a narrow perspective that neglects potential downstream impacts, such as regulatory noncompliance or user dissatisfaction, which could have significant financial and reputational consequences. Another incorrect approach that relies entirely on anecdotal evidence or gut feeling, rather than a structured assessment, lacks the rigor necessary for professional decision-making. This can lead to overlooked critical risks or an inefficient allocation of resources to address minor concerns. A third incorrect approach that delays risk assessment until after the solution is developed is a critical ethical and professional failure. This reactive stance significantly increases the likelihood of encountering unforeseen problems that are far more difficult and expensive to resolve once the system is in place, potentially leading to breaches of data integrity or security, and failing to meet the due diligence expected of a solution designer. Professionals should employ a structured risk management framework. This involves defining the scope of the risk assessment, identifying potential risks through brainstorming, stakeholder interviews, and analysis of similar projects, assessing the likelihood and impact of each identified risk, and then planning appropriate responses, mitigation, avoidance, transfer, or acceptance. Regular review and updates to the risk register throughout the project lifecycle are also crucial. This systematic process ensures that risks are managed proactively and that decisions are based on a thorough understanding of potential challenges. Question 18. Benchmark analysis indicates that a proposed IBM Datacap V9.0 solution for a financial services client has several potential vulnerabilities. The solution designer is tasked with conducting a risk assessment. Which of the following approaches best balances thoroughness with project feasibility? Option A. Focus exclusively on risks that are immediately apparent during the initial system walkthrough and require minimal effort to address. Option B. Identify all conceivable risks, categorize them by potential impact, and then prioritize mitigation efforts based on the severity of the impact and the likelihood of occurrence, ensuring that the most critical risks are addressed first within project constraints. Option C. Prioritize risks based solely on how easy they are to fix, ensuring that the project team can quickly implement solutions for a large number of identified issues. Option D. Document every potential risk that comes to mind, regardless of its likelihood or impact, and present this comprehensive list to the project manager for their review. The correct answer is B. Identify all conceivable risks, categorize them by potential impact, and then prioritize mitigation efforts based on the severity of the impact and the likelihood of occurrence, ensuring that the most critical risks are addressed first within project constraints. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the solution designer must balance the need for robust risk assessment with the practical constraints of a project timeline and budget. The core of the challenge lies in identifying and prioritizing risks that are both significant and actionable within the given project parameters. A superficial risk assessment could lead to overlooking critical vulnerabilities, while an overly exhaustive one could paralyze the project. Careful judgment is required to ensure the assessment is thorough enough to be effective, but not so burdensome as to be impractical. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it aligns with the principles of proactive risk management, which is a cornerstone of effective solution design. By focusing on the likelihood and impact of identified risks, the designer ensures that resources are allocated to address the most critical threats first. This systematic approach, often guided by industry best practices and potentially internal company policies, which would be the relevant regulatory framework in a real-world IBM Datacap V9.0 implementation context, assuming no specific external jurisdiction is mandated for this exam question beyond the IBM framework itself, allows for informed decision-making and the development of appropriate mitigation strategies. This demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to delivering a secure and reliable solution. An incorrect approach that involves merely documenting all potential risks without prioritization fails to address the practicalities of project management. This is professionally unacceptable because it creates a large, unmanageable list of issues, leading to potential inaction on critical risks due to resource dilution. Ethically, it could be seen as a failure to adequately protect the client's interests by not highlighting the most severe threats. Another incorrect approach, which is to only consider risks that are immediately obvious and require no further investigation, is also professionally unacceptable. This approach is inherently flawed as it ignores latent or complex risks that may not be apparent on the surface but could have significant consequences. This could lead to regulatory noncompliance if the overlooked risks pertain to data security, privacy, or operational integrity, depending on the specific industry and its governing regulations. It represents a failure in professional due diligence. A third incorrect approach, focusing solely on risks that are easy to mitigate, is professionally unsound. While ease of mitigation is a factor, it should not be the primary driver for risk assessment. This approach risks ignoring high-impact, difficult-to-mitigate risks that could have catastrophic consequences for the solution and the business it supports. This could lead to significant financial or reputational damage and potentially violate regulatory requirements related to business continuity or disaster recovery. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment methodology. This typically includes identifying potential risks, analyzing their likelihood and impact, evaluating their severity, and developing appropriate response strategies, mitigation, avoidance, transfer, or acceptance. The designer should then prioritize these risks based on their severity and the project's constraints, ensuring that the most critical risks are addressed first. Regular review and updates to the risk assessment throughout the project lifecycle are also crucial. Question 19. Governance review demonstrates that a critical IBM Datacap V90 solution, responsible for processing sensitive customer financial data, is utilizing a component with known, unpatched security vulnerabilities. The solution is currently operational and meeting business demands. What is the most appropriate immediate next step for the solution designer? Option A. Initiate a comprehensive risk assessment to evaluate the potential impact of the vulnerabilities on data security and business operations, and develop a prioritized mitigation plan. Option B. Document the vulnerabilities in the system's technical documentation and inform the development team to address them during the next major version upgrade of IBM Datacap. Option C. Immediately halt all processing of sensitive data through the solution until the vulnerabilities can be patched, regardless of the impact on business operations. Option D. Continue with the current operational state of the solution, as it is meeting business demands, and defer any remediation efforts until a future scheduled maintenance window. The correct answer is A. Initiate a comprehensive risk assessment to evaluate the potential impact of the vulnerabilities on data security and business operations, and develop a prioritized mitigation plan. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in solution design, where a critical business process relies on a technology that has known vulnerabilities. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for operational continuity with the long-term risks associated with unmitigated security weaknesses. A professional solution designer must not only understand the technical implications, but also the regulatory and business impact of their decisions. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, risk-based methodology aligned with established governance principles. By conducting a thorough risk assessment, the designer can identify, analyze, and evaluate the potential impact of the vulnerabilities. This allows for informed decision-making regarding mitigation strategies, resource allocation, and communication with stakeholders. This aligns with general IT governance best practices that emphasize proactive risk management and due diligence in protecting sensitive data and ensuring system integrity, which are often implicitly or explicitly required by regulations governing data handling and business continuity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate functionality without addressing the identified vulnerabilities fails to meet professional standards. This oversight could lead to a breach of data privacy regulations, such as those requiring reasonable security measures to protect personal information. It also represents a failure in due diligence, potentially exposing the organization to significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruption if the vulnerabilities are exploited. Another incorrect approach that involves ignoring the governance review findings and proceeding with the existing system without any remediation plan is ethically unsound and professionally negligent. This demonstrates a disregard for established control frameworks and could violate compliance mandates that require regular security assessment and remediation of identified risks. Such an approach places the organization at an unacceptable level of risk. A professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a systematic approach. 1. Understand the business context and the criticality of the process. 2. Thoroughly analyze the findings of the governance review, including the nature and severity of the identified vulnerabilities. 3. Quantify the potential risks, impact, and likelihood associated with these vulnerabilities. 4. Evaluate various mitigation options, considering technical feasibility, cost, and business impact. 5. Develop a prioritized remediation plan with clear timelines and responsibilities. 6. Communicate findings and proposed actions to relevant stakeholders, including management and compliance officers. 7. Document all decisions and actions taken for audit and future reference. Question 20. The efficiency study reveals that a critical data capture process within an IBM Datacap V9.0 solution is experiencing significant delays, leading to increased operational costs and potential compliance risks. Which of the following risk assessment approaches would best address this situation while adhering to regulatory requirements for data integrity and auditability? Option A. Immediately increase the processing power of the servers hosting the Datacap application and database to accelerate document throughput. Option B. Disable certain data validation rules within the Datacap application that are perceived as slowing down the process to improve overall speed. Option C. Conduct a detailed analysis of the Datacap workflow, identifying potential bottlenecks in rule execution, document processing, and integration points, and prioritize remediation based on the identified impact and likelihood of failure. Option D. Focus solely on optimizing the network infrastructure between the Datacap server and its clients, assuming network latency is the primary cause of delays. The correct answer is C. Conduct a detailed analysis of the Datacap workflow, identifying potential bottlenecks in rule execution, document processing, and integration points, and prioritize remediation based on the identified impact and likelihood of failure. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals that a critical data capture process within an IBM Datacap V9.0 solution is experiencing significant delays, leading to increased operational costs and potential compliance risks. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of these delays without disrupting ongoing operations or compromising data integrity, which is paramount for regulatory adherence. A thorough risk assessment is essential to prioritize remediation efforts and ensure that any proposed changes do not introduce new vulnerabilities or violate data handling regulations. The correct approach involves a systematic risk assessment that prioritizes identifying the most impactful failure points within the Datacap workflow. This includes analyzing potential causes such as network latency, insufficient processing power, inefficient rule sets, or external system dependencies. By focusing on these areas, the solution designer can pinpoint the most probable causes of inefficiency and develop targeted solutions. This aligns with best professional practices by employing a structured, data-driven methodology to problem solving, ensuring that resources are allocated effectively and that the impact on business operations and compliance is minimized. Adherence to IBM Datacap V9.0 best practices for performance tuning and error handling is also a key component. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement broad, unverified changes to the Datacap application or its infrastructure without a proper risk assessment. For example, randomly increasing server resources without understanding the bottleneck could lead to unnecessary expenditure and potentially mask underlying software configuration issues. Another incorrect approach would be to bypass or disable critical validation rules in an attempt to speed up processing. This would represent a significant regulatory failure, as it compromises data accuracy and integrity, potentially violating regulations that mandate accurate record-keeping and data validation. Furthermore, making changes without documenting them or assessing their impact on downstream systems or audit trails is a violation of good IT governance and could lead to audit failures. Professionals should approach such situations by first establishing a clear understanding of the problem statement and its potential impact. This involves engaging with stakeholders to gather information and define success criteria. The next step is to conduct a comprehensive risk assessment, identifying potential causes and their likelihood and impact. Based on this assessment, a prioritized list of remediation actions should be developed, with a focus on solutions that offer the greatest benefit with the least risk. Each proposed solution should be evaluated for its technical feasibility, cost-effectiveness, and compliance implications before implementation. A phased rollout and rigorous testing are crucial to ensure that the implemented changes achieve the desired outcome without introducing new problems.